back to the channel, everybody. This is going to be a longer video. I have tried my best to make it a short video. I know nobody wants to sit through 20 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, of just straight talking. They want to get to the trains, but I think a TED Talk needs to be made, and I've heard it myself before, and I think we got to keep reminding some people of these two issues that I've seen pop up and that I've dealt with myself on both sides. So don't mind me as I drink my coffee and have this little discussion. Well, I guess it's a one-sided discussion, but it's basically a two-folded single subject. Lately I've been seeing and have been, if you want to call it victim, I don't really call it a victim because I'm a strong enough person and I really just don't care. But I've seen some victims of some, I guess, bullying or gatekeeping, that sort of stuff, lately online. And it's not just something lately, it's been something that's happened, since the dawn of humanity, really, in every aspect. But I'm seeing in this community, in the training, model train community, it happened. And I know that it can discourage people because, like I said, as strong as and as much as I really don't care, it still would affect you. Full disclosure, I went through a mental breakdown about 3 years ago, something like that, and have been dealing with it ever since. I'm still not out of the woods, but oh man, I'm trying to remember. I gotta project, otherwise you can't hear me. But with that, as strong as I am, there's still times where I'm kind of in my darker zone, if you want to say, and somebody saying the wrong thing could still end up annoying the piss out of me, whatever the case might be. But there are some people that are trying their best, and just that could be the one thing that just sends them over the edge and says enough with the modeling, and who knows how far down that rabbit hole it could go. But I've seen things. There was a post. Well, there's a post that I did about my trains. It was just a quick little video of one that I got repaired back there. Put it into a contest with another one that I've seen with my own eyes, driving as a professional driver for 26 years. I've seen a lash up like that, and this guy told me almost in no uncertain terms that I am completely wrong for having that because it would never happen in the real world, and it should be another road name that it should the second car should be lashed up to. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, that's your opinion, but the key word that he used, that he said butt hurt me, but it wasn't a matter of butt hurt. It was a matter of just saying stop right there and don't progress any farther. Was he said it needs to be such and such, LOL. Why does it need to be? For one, this is my layout and my world. And remember the golden rule, I will fall back and I'll probably say about 5 times in this video at least. It's my railroad. It's my world. It's my layout. It can be whatever it wants. When it boils to it, this is all just plastic and metal toys. I'm an adult with adult money, wasting adult money on toys. And that's what we've got to kind of bring down to reality. And I've said that many times on some posts. Some people just like, wow, blah, 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 blah. It's a toy. Come on. And so it doesn't really matter what the real world is, what you think it is. It's a matter of how I, enjoy my trains. And for me, it works, Like I said, it didn't really affect me. It kind of brought this idea of the video back out to me because I kind of shelved it. I mentioned it in my last video and I put it on the shelf because I thought I don't need to talk about things like that. I don't want a depressing video. We're all here to have fun and that sort of stuff. But that kind of brought that back up in my mind, and then I thought, I shot the video I don't know how many times. And again, it was just like, man, I don't want to bring this video out, especially this new of a channel. I don't want it to seem like the channel's going to go off in a wrong direction. But again, I shelved it. I put it, I just said, nope, erased all the files, the video files and everything. And I said, nah, it's just not going to happen. It's not worth the time. Not that, it's not necessarily worth the time. It's just, like I said, I don't want you to get the wrong impression of him. But then this morning, I saw another post in another train group of somebody who had, I think it was an O-scale auto rack or something, and they wanted to modify it because the manufacturer said that the doors opened and they weren't opening, so he modified it, and whether he broke it or not, I don't know. The pictures looked like it was okay. I didn't bother too much looking at it because, again, it's not mine. I don't really care, but again, the guy didn't seem like he was overly affected by it. He was making more of a joke of this clown that had posted, and he blocked out the guy's name and everything, and just saying, like, dude, like, guy was going on saying that, well, manufacturers should, block people from like this from buying their products, and this is why we can't have nice things. And I'm like, why does that affect you? And why would a manufacturer, in fact, if anything, a manufacturer is going to like that person that destroys their stuff, because then they're going to have to buy another unit, so they're making twice as much from somebody like that compared to you that's trying to gatekeep and say we shouldn't have people like that. So I think as business that I would go with the guy that wants to destroy it and just, hey, go ahead and destroy it and buy 3 more while you're at it. But like I said, my scenario and that scenario, and I think there was another one the day before mine. They don't seem to have had much of an effect on either of us. That being said, I don't know, where the mindset is for the other people. But keeping that in mind, there was the flip side of the coin, to where somebody was basically asking for advice, not sure where they should go. I don't know how in depth they've been into model railroading, but they're basically asking, like, should I just keep going? Like, I guess their layout wasn't going the way it was. They wanted it to, the way they envisioned it. I don't know if they were, bullied. I don't like using the word bully, but let's just say bullied for now, for lack of a better term. I don't know what the scenario was, but they were basically asking, is it really worth it? That sort of stuff. And I kind of think at that point, again, I don't know the person, but what kind of issues are they having? And not just in the trains, I'm talking about in life, because you never know what somebody's going through. And I've learned a lot personally over the last, I'd say, year or so, because I've been a very hate-filled person, I guess, just because of my own mental instability, I'll call it. So, a lot of people, they saw the smile and, and things like that, but they never saw the inside, where my mind was just racing through 20 other, negative scenarios. And I have a lot to thank for the one group that I travel with most of the time for the last 4 years. I've learned a lot from them, just as decent human beings and that sort of stuff. We might not see eye to eye on some things, but I think as just general human beings, they are top notch, and the rest of the crew. I'm not just talking about the band, I'm talking about the whole crew. But like I said, I used to be, well, I still am. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I still have my days where I'm very negative. A lot more days than I still want. Where I see posts on Facebook or, a video on YouTube, and I'm just like, whatever. Now I've gotten to the point where I've typed out a comment or whatever, and a lot of times I've been finding myself hitting that back button and just getting out and not posting the comment, and I'm happy about that. I'm proud of that fact that I've matured at least a little bit to that point. But for instance, there's one person, and this will tie into the other half of this in a minute. There's one person that I watch on YouTube. I'm subscribed to him. And to be honest, I'm going to put it kind of bluntly, and I don't mean it in a negative way at this point anyways. To me, his layout's trash. There's absolutely no realism in it. It's very toyish, very kiddish, very primary colors. There is just very little that I could say positive, if I wanted to, about his layout. And I had commented some things in the past. I think I've been watching him for about a year or so. I've said some things in the past, not very snarky, but just kind of like, man, that makes no sense whatsoever. But I've come to the realization, again, it's his model railroad, just like this one's mine. I don't have any room to tell him what to do with his layout. And what I've kind of come to see in the videos is not his layout, but he's an older man. He's in his probably 60s or something like that. I think he's retired. But he is always smiling. He's always happy. He's always cheerful. Maybe a little bit off his rocker. I don't know. I joke with my wife about Grandpa, doing some weird thing, but in a jovial manner, not really, being mean about him. Just just because I could see myself in his position in about 20, 30 years. But before, it used to be like, look at this guy's off his rocker. He's building this and he's doing that, and well, that's just not going to work. And and things like that. And that's where I've kind of learned, like I said, to just, live and let live, let bygones be bygones, however you want to say it. I have no financial investments in his layout or anybody else's layout. I got my investment. And like I said to the guy talking about how, the lead locomotive should be this other road name, I said, okay, fine. If you really think that highly that you've got to argue with me on the internet because you're a tough guy, I take rivet counter only, scale trains. I'm a big scale trains. Obviously, I got the hat, right? I take scale trains. If you want to buy me a scale trains rivet counter DCC with sound, I will put it on there, and I will get rid of the lead locomotive, and I will put that one on here. But until he wants to put up that money, he has no say on my layout. So that's the first half of what I'm trying to say, is that just let things go. You know what I mean? If it annoys you, fine. Things annoy me all the time. My dog breathing sometimes can annoy me. But we don't have to say those things out loud sometimes. As long as that person is happy with what they're doing, let them be. As soon as it affects and this goes with anything in life I'm learning, as long as it doesn't affect me, my paycheck, my health, my food supply, the roof over my head or anything, I really should just not care. Give it the thumbs up. Give it a thumbs down if you think, some positive and negative constructive criticism is fine. But when we're bashing people just to make ourselves feel better about ourselves, that's where it kind of becomes a problem. And when we do that, be that gatekeeper of it has to be this way. It has to be, it has to be the rivet counters. I love my rivet counters. Trust me, I love the detail. I love the realism. But like this other guy that, I watch, he's got 3 BNSF starter set. I got one down here. I actually bought it as DC, and I actually liked it so well that I had a DCC decoder in put in, and there's nothing wrong with that unit. But he runs the 3 of those, and then he's got like 3 or 4 caboose that he runs in the consist, and it's just like, dude, But it doesn't matter. He's happy, and I'm happy with my layout, and I'm happy that he's happy, and that's where I've learned. Just be happy that somebody else is happy. We don't need to gatekeep, because we get the people that are, and I'm not saying that post on Facebook about not knowing what to do, and wanting to get rid of the layout. I'm not saying that was kind of a cry for help, because he just feels, that the hobby, is letting him down, or the people in the hobby are letting him down. But I'm sure that's happened. Somebody comes in and, it's the best they can do. They don't have a lot of money. They got a lot of bills. They've got a lot of problems at home. And they bought this cheap little DC starter set from, Marketplace, and half the cars are broken, the track is dirty, doesn't work. And they're coming to us, all happy that they've got it, and the locomotive's kind of sputtering around, and they don't know to clean wheels and clean tracks and blah blah blah. Whatever the case is, they're still happy with what they've got, and then we come in as gatekeepers and say, well, that's a piece of crap, and you really should get something different. That's going to put them off of the already what's considered a dying hobby. Now, I don't necessarily think it's dying per se, but I can see where there are the issues to where it's not as popular as it could, should, or has been. So we don't really want that, do we? I mean, do we want to make somebody feel like, you've got to be, you've got to afford the $400, locomotives, top of the line, or you really have no place in the hobby? I don't think that's what this is about. I think that anybody, it's for crying out loud, it started as like a kid's toy, going around the Christmas tree. And so yeah, I've already gotten almost 20 minutes now, well, 17 minutes of just the first point. So I'm gonna end that. Just don't be a dick to people is what I'm trying to say. You're gonna have thoughts. You're human. I'm human. We're gonna have the thoughts of, well, man, personally, I wouldn't do that, but just leave it, let it be, and just move on and say, hey, good job. I'm glad you're happy, and then just leave it at that. The flip side of that is going back to that guy's post, not knowing and just feeling like, layout's just not going where it is, feeling inadequate. I feel that way. When I watch somebody like Boomer Diorama, I first get hyped up. I'm all, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm pumped. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I could do that type of stuff. And then 5 minutes later, I beat myself up thinking, man, I can't do that. Mine's not ever going to look like that. But we gotta realize where people like Boomer are compared to where we are. He has like 30-40 years in film, television, and working with museums on building dioramas and staging things and building sets and everything. So he's done it professionally as well as his hobby. I've been doing this. I've been into model trains for about 4 years. And in that 4 years, I built my first 4x8 little oval track layout. And I learned a few things before and I built it. And then I learned a few things from there. Kind of like, right now I'm painting everything in a brown earthy tone. I think it's called Fire Earth or something like that. I'd have to look the paint chip again. The first layout I did was a green. It was almost a lime green. And it worked. When I put down the scenic grass, the turf, whatever it's called, it blended well enough. But I found that with the brown, I've learned that it looks a lot more natural because the ground underneath the grass is brown. And grass doesn't cover 100% of the area. There is a lot of dirt showing. We just don't really recognize it And so with that, I've done that on this, and this one I built 3 years ago. I think it is my second layout. It's a 2x8, and I've noticed, especially over the last little while, especially with moving it and that sort of stuff, is that there are some balder spots, and maybe I didn't lay down the grass as well as I thought, but it's actually looking more and more natural as time goes by, simply because it's got the brown paint underneath. So you'll learn things after a while. And I just realized I didn't turn on the headlight. So let's see. Yeah, it's good enough. Yeah, the headlight's on the back one. Whatever, I don't care. One thing that I didn't do on this layout that I am beating myself up for is the fact that I didn't use any sort of road bed. I was using foam on the 4x8. Didn't really like that. I wanted to use cork, but when I built this, it was kind of in that time frame where it was really hard to find cork. And so I just said, you know what, it's fine. It's a switching layout. It was just this. I had the intent of being able to build onto it, but I didn't really know exactly where it was going to go, and I figured I could deal with it later. And now that I'm trying to deal with it later, I don't have any sort of road bed on the layout, and that kind of sucks. But I've learned things off of this layout on how to do things the right way. But yeah, I mean, am I happy with the way my layout is and how it's turning out? Absolutely. I think for my skill level I'm at, I'm doing pretty well. You know, like I said, about 4 years I've been doing this, and of that 4 years, how much time have I actually been able to put into it? I think this home time, I've been off since October. I've been pretty dedicated to getting it done. So, I mean, I can put in 40-hour week, building this if I really wanted to. But, I mean, in 4 years, I got, maybe, say, 8 months worth of experience in doing this stuff. Whereas Boomer, like I said, 40 years, he's been doing it professionally and as a personal hobby. So he is going to be light years away from what I can do. So it's not fair to base, for myself, it's not fair to base my current skill level on his skill level. And then that's where the flip side of that coin is, I look at somebody like the other video, the YouTuber that I'm talking about. I don't think he's been doing it very long. I think maybe a year or two, something like that. And he actually has learned a few things in the meantime. He's putting down the grass now instead of just the paint and that sort of stuff. So he is progressing too, but he's at a different rate. He's got other things in his life that he's doing, and he doesn't have time to devote. He's retired, but he's doing other things. So he's got another channel he's doing other things on it. So he's not devoting 100% of his time onto the layout as well. So we really can't beat ourselves up as to skill level. And my problem is I want this to look like a real world. I want it to look like, man, that is through a window. I put a window frame up here and I'm looking, at France, whatever. You know what I mean? I want to think that when I go to bed, this world comes alive and, they're bustling around. But again, I go back to that fact that it's just plastic toys. It doesn't need to look like a real miniature world, Again, I think it does to a certain extent. It looks pretty well. It's presented well, but I've also got things that I've bought, like Woodland Scenics buildings that are pre-lit, distressed and weathered and that sort of stuff. Some I've built, and some I've gotten at the train. Jeez, talk about a brain fart. I still can't. I got it in my head, but I can't say it. Train show. Thank you. Like for instance, this is one of the first things I ever did, and I'm still proud of this. A little weathered, I think it was a Walters kit. It's not the greatest, but it's definitely not the worst. And the light's really kind of not showing in the few years of dust on it. But, that's not bad. But I've since learned, and I've done other things. And where the heck was that? I think it was there. Yeah, you're gonna learn as you do more and more things. So don't worry about, if it doesn't look like an absolute miniature. And you don't have to kit bash and scratch build everything. Having the bought buildings, like most of, well, yeah, about half of the buildings in there are woodland scenics, or a quarter of them are ones that I have bought at the train show, and there's a couple that I actually built. So it doesn't matter. You can mix and match. You don't have to have everything, like I said, scratch built. Um, the biggest thing that I have with my layout is the fact that everything is so flat, and I'm trying to get into elevation. I see that's another thing that I kind of beat myself on, because I watch other videos and I see, even on like a 2x8, I see mountainscapes, like just beautiful, beautiful mountainscapes, all rock carves, or up in the Pacific Northwest, all just full of Douglas fir trees, whatever. And then I look at mine and it's all flat. Only elevation I got is right in behind me. You can't see it, but I got that little hill that I built there, and then the small little hill in town. But it was a progressive thing. I built everything flat on the first one, and then, starting to learn that other skill. I started to get one skill, not perfected, but to a level where I was happy with before I started doing another skill, building elevation. Would I have done this differently? Absolutely. To the last day that I'm working on it, I will think, man, I could have done this differently. I could have done like an open, and this is something I didn't really think of until recently, watching some other do the open bench work, where I can, play with the terrain a little bit more. This is all just 2x4 legs and frame, and then a piece of flat plywood and foam on top of it. There's things I can still do, and I'm trying to figure out how I can incorporate a little bit of terrain here, get a little bit of scene break. But if I don't, I don't. It's perfectly fine. The train works, and that's the biggest thing. I started to get to that point of saying that the layout wasn't worthy of being built, which is why I haven't done any more scenery as of late. I kind of felt like I was rushing on that section back there. It didn't take me very long. It took me a few days, maybe. Again, I'm trying to remember that, I have that time to dedicate. I'm not going to work every day, Monday to Friday. So that aspect, I'm like, I didn't really rush it. I just, had time to work on it. But just laying down the grass and everything, and it's not done yet. I got to remember that. I don't have static grass down. I don't have any bushes or trees down. I got a couple in place just as a, kind of a placeholder. But beyond that, I still got work to do, but I just felt like I had gotten so much done so quickly, and with the ballast and with the grass being laid and everything. I'm like, the roads, and I'm like, man, I just don't think that I'm putting enough effort into it. It seems like no matter how much effort you put into something, you always feel like, or at least I do, you always feel like, you could have put in more. And it's like, well, I just beat myself to death. But okay, if I think that, you know what I mean? So I ended up ending with the bridge. I finished that, and then I went to finishing off all the fascia, getting that taken care of. So at least that part is pretty much finished. But I stopped at a good stopping point, because the next thing I need to work on is the road here with the construction, and I want to make this a kind of an anchor scene to me. So I want this to be perfect, because everything in your peripheral can look amazing when it's in your peripheral if you're focusing on this. So I didn't want to, and I've got to start this in order to progress from the bridge over. So I thought that was a good breaking point, because the layout ends there, the bridge comes in. I can deal with this, building the road and everything, when I start feeling a little bit more comfortable, like I've given it some time. We don't have to rush through this stuff. I've known some people that have had layouts. The one guy I know up north, I bought some stuff from him. his layout hasn't changed in the length of time that I've known him. I haven't been up there lately, but I don't think so. Beautiful, man. He's got it up in his attic, and it's a big attic. It's an old 1900s house, and yeah, big attic, and he's got track all the way around it, and I'd say most of it looks like this part here that's unfinished. He's got the brown paint, the track's down, it's operational. He's got some buildings and some, toys and this and that, but it's not all 100% scenic. He's got some sections where he's got this little creek running through and a little campsite and everything. That part's done. He's working on another part where he decided he's going to put in a bridge and everything. So it's a living, breathing thing where it's going to change, it's going to evolve, but it doesn't have to be overnight. I can honestly, with the train just going around in a circle, I could live like this for a long time. Excuse me, because what I do at this point is I pull up. I got my little leather chair here that I can't remember where we got it from, but had it for years, and it sits underneath the layout. I pull that out, grab my coffee in the morning, sometimes in the evening, whatever, before the wife comes home, and I just sit here in the corner and I watch it going around just like it is now. I'll have sound on, I'll have the remote in my hand so I can play with the horn, everything, and I can come and reach over here and play with the lights and the bell for the grade crossing over here. And I just sit here and watch it go around and around and around, and that is therapeutic. First of all, for the fact that I don't have to think about the outside world. I could just watch this train. It's going right by there. I can just watch it go by all day. Doesn't matter. Every once in a while, I got to work on the bridge because I think some of the track, I can run the train going this way, but I can't go this way because it ends up derailing because I think, anyways, that's trying to not build a bridge around a corner, but I had no choice. Try not to do that. Makes things a lot easier when the track is just straight. But, yeah, it doesn't need to be done in a rush. I know we all want to just see it, done and be perfect, but the more we rush, the less perfect it's going to be, right? And the thing is I've got now half of this basically done. Like I said, I've still got to do some little detail work there, but I've got about half of it done, and once I get the rest of this done, technically I could do it before I go back to work. I don't know when that's going to be, but I know I'm off for the rest of the year. I could get this done by the end of the year if I wanted to, but I don't want to, because as soon as it's done, then what do? Then I watch the train goes around and do some op sessions and that sort of stuff. But some of the maybe say half of the fun in model railroading is the actual building of it. So you don't necessarily want to rush through, because as soon as you do, then you're done. So yeah, to people like that guy and myself, when you start to feel burnt out, or you start to feel like it just isn't going the way that it should, or you just feel like, man, it isn't adequate, whatever the case is, just step back, just run some trains, let it go around in a loop if you're fortunate. I'm very fortunate to have what I have here, this room, which was another collection. All those light bars, that's only like a third of the lights I've got. This room, before I brought this up here, was literally floor to ceiling, all four walls, in the closet, blocking out the window even. Everything was just lights. I got more in the garage and that sort of stuff. But I really wanted to get this built, so I said, all right, that collection's got to go. I got another collection of Ghostbuster stuff, because I am a ghost head. I am, I'm the very last little bit of Gen X, so yeah, I've got all my Ghostbuster stuff in there, proton packs, and my old school Kenner stuff, and that's. I'm almost thinking I need to move that, because I'd like to punch a hole right through that little bit of the wall there, and then make a nice staging yard or something over there. But that's not going to happen yet. But like I said, I'm fortunate enough to have a place where I can sit in the middle and have it go around me. Got the track all situated. It does. I've got, I think, 9 industries that I can do an op session. You know what? 3 of the buildings aren't even built yet. They're just kind of built big enough to be a placeholder. But it doesn't matter. The imagination can take care of the rest. And I haven't done an op session actually in a little while. I really should. I should do that today maybe. Have a beer later and do some ops. But yeah, just like in closing, because we're coming up, it's probably going to be a 40-minute video at this rate. Just, take your time and do something else. In fact, I'm just playing with some notebooks that I just bought. I got 2 of them because I know I need at least 2 of them. That's another thing. I need to, another thing. I don't need to scenic. I could get to working on some of these buildings and start building those. Take myself away from the layout. So I can run trains, I can build the layout. If you're like me and you've got DCC, I've got a collection of, I think, 57 locomotives or something like that are DCC. And I'm starting to go through them and trying to speed match some, get them to work with my proto throttle. Not all of them are going to be on the proto throttle, but consisting some of them. So I got some books. I got the ECU programmer. I've got to go through all that. So that's another thing that I got to do. So, just even if you run DC, just make a roster of what locomotives you've got, and try running some together and see which ones work better together, because you can run DC together if you do it right, and just start writing things down. So there's other things that you can do in the hobby other than just scenery or whatever is you're feeling burnt out or inadequate on at the moment. Just do something else. There's plenty of opportunities in this industry in this hobby to keep yourself busy and occupied and away from burnout. So I think that's the 2 takeaways that I've got for this long ass video. I appreciate anybody who's still here. If you're still here, comment something. Just, I don't care if it's a period or something, just comment something so I know that somebody has at least made it to this point. Whether you agree with me or not, I really don't care. I'm really just kind of hoping that this video helps somebody, whether it's somebody who is like me, who's a complete ass in real life. Try to realize that you don't have to be an ass every day, or to everybody, and that sometimes being that can affect somebody negatively, whether they're a wimp or not. That's not for you to decide. But yeah, the 2 takeaways is that don't be a prick to everybody. Don't be a gatekeeper. Just be happy that somebody is keeping this hobby alive. Because honestly, without those people, we start affecting people not buying stuff, people getting out of the hobby, then less and less is going to be available to us, and eventually it's going to be so hard to get anything that we're all going to be screwed. So we can't gatekeep. So don't gatekeep. Don't be a prick to everybody. Just give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, constructive criticism, not this needs to be something, or you need to do this. Don't do that. Say, hey man, I think that in the real world this would be the case. Maybe you should look at that. Just word it right. Sometimes it's not even what you're meaning. You could have the best of intentions, but sometimes it just comes over wrong. And the other point is, don't give up. Just kind of shuffle your focus on to another point of the hobby. The thing that I try to remind myself is that in the time that I've been doing this, I've built up a lot of, I'm going to say equity, but I mean, you don't buy this stuff for, for a rainy day fund. But just mental equity, something that you enjoy. So it's I can't really think of the wording that I want to use right now, but it's got a purpose. And if I tomorrow decide, man, I'm tired of this, just take a break from trains, then I'm gonna lose space in a room, but Some people, it's just that starter set. And all I got to do is pull it apart, put it in the box, put the box in the closet. And if I just need to walk away from this thing for a month, 2 months, a year, 3 months, it doesn't matter, because I can always come back to it, and I've always got it. So just don't give up to the point where you sell everything off, because if there's one thing I've learned with a lot of the other collections that I've done, once you sell it, you know, it's like my bike. I used to have a motorbike, but I got a fire truck sitting out front that I never play with now, but that was brand new when I got it. I got a sports car that I got. I never played with the bike anymore, so I sold the bike. And now, guess what I want to do? I want to hop on that bike. It was a cheap bike, and I can find another cheap bike, but I got to go find one, and I got to start over again. Once you have it, you know, if it's not costing you anything to have it, you might as well keep it. You know, and that being said, I know there are, you know, times where, you know, cash is needed and better than something just collecting dust. I'm not talking about that scenario. I'm just talking about, you know, if you think you've lost interest, just give it some time at least. You know, don't just say, man, all right, I'm done with this, sell it. You know what I mean? Don't do that. So anyways, this clip is 41 minutes long already. Thank you so much for making it through here. Like I said, hopefully somebody has learned something, whether you were the prick or you were the receiver of the prickness. Hopefully one way or another it's helped at least one person, and if it has at least, then this video has been worth it. If not, I can at least say that I feel a little bit better at this point, kind of talking it out. So thank you all so much for watching at this point, and we will catch you on another video that isn't as serious. Take care.